Happy Vlogmas, everybody. We're going to be starting off today the way we start off every single day, which is at about 4 o'clock. We get ready to work out. So my concoction for my workout start off with this C-Bum pre-workout. It's the Peach Mango Essential. To me, hits every cylinder that I need. Love it. Then we're going to top that off with a little bit of a creatine. Kind of measured this out to be about 5 grams. And then we're also going to be using the raw pump. Been using this for the last few months, and I've enjoyed how it's enhanced my workouts. I probably won't be using it during the holidays, but I like it so far. Next year I'm actually going to be 40 years old, and fitness has been such a important thing in my life. Not just to make me stronger and better focused and all that kind of stuff, but it's also something that when it comes to raising boys, you want to make sure that you are keeping fitness as one of your core essentials in your life, because this is something that they're going to be able to carry on with them as they get older. All right, so I just hit 4:15. We should make it to the gym by at least 4:30, which means that we should be getting out of the gym latest 6:30. And to me, the main reason why I like getting up so early is because as a parent, especially as a parent who's an entrepreneur, who has the mindset I have, who has the goals that I have, time is very, very precious. Not just because my time is devoted to my clients, but also because my time is primarily devoted to my family, to my wife, to my kids, to my friends. But the other thing is also like getting work done. I mean, when you're an entrepreneur, you have to come up with your own schedule. You have to come up with what works for you, one. But being an entrepreneur who's also a creative is, I would say, even more difficult, because you're having to wrestle both your managerial side, right? The phone calls, the meetings, all that kind of stuff. But then you also have to manage your creative side, whether it's being on site for your shoots, whether it's editing, whether it's post-production, pre-production, whatever it is. You have to balance these two worlds of the manager you and the creative you. And to me, I've kind of learned that it doesn't come that easy to me. On the manager side, I'm more of a creative. I guess you could say, more of a free spirit when it comes to schedules and stuff like that. And so having to form this dichotomy in my business with myself is something that I'm always having to crack down on. So what I've kind of come to terms with is, hey, if I'm up at least by 2:30 the earliest, 3:30 the latest, I'm able to get things ready for the day. I'm able to get my mindset for the day. Oh my gosh, the moon looks amazing. Wow. But I'm able to get so many things ready, rather than if I woke up at 6 or 7 and try to do all this stuff. Like I said, if I'm up around 2:33, into the gym by 4:30, out of the gym by 6:30, get back home before 7, if I can get some editing done, if I can get some creative ideas done before the family wakes up, whether it's around 8, 9, if I'm lucky 10, but if they're up at least by 8, 8:30, that means I've got to knock out at least an hour to 2 hours worth of work. And again, a lot of this tends to be my more managerial side, the things that I know it's not taking too much creative bandwidth and thinking from my brain. Again, luckily, my wife also helps me run the business, so she has way more of the managerial side than I do, so she's able to kind of block out a lot of that noise for me. But because I tend to be the face of the business, because I am in the meetings and all that kind of stuff, that means I do need to be thinking a lot about my clients' needs, wants, their pains, and all that kind of stuff. So being up at 2:30 or 3 in the morning has been, for me, a life hack. I know to some people it sounds crazy, but this has been my life for almost 20 years now. at the end of the day, this has kind of been engraved in my DNA. And so I think this mindset, this mentality, this DNA inside of me has kind of created me to be somebody who thrives off of maybe 4 or 5 hours of sleep. I used to want to be the kind of person who would get 8 hours. I used to be the kind of person who would, strive for those kind of things, and it just never worked for me. So what I ended up realizing was I'm my own person. Like, I can't take data from other people and make it fit my mold and my lifestyle. And so, that's I think the other thing, being an entrepreneur, it allows you to create your own hours, it allows you to create your own stability, it allows you to create your own flexibility, but you need to be harder on yourself than you are on anybody else. And so, like I said, I think being up this early, getting my mindset in, making sure that I'm getting my workout in, making sure that I'm getting at least some journaling in, some reading of, whether it's the Bible, whether it's listening to an audiobook, whether it's just getting other creative sources in my brain other than social media is a big plus for me, because I think so often, especially when it comes to social media, we use it as a means of comparison, not of creativity, right? Like, we don't go to social media, at least, speaking as a creative, and I don't think I go to social media as much for creative ideas as I do of comparing my work to other people's work. And so the biggest struggle for me is like, okay, that can't be my primary source of intake, because it's only draining me because of the comparison. But when I look at other sources like literature or like movies or music, and I get creativity from other sources, it allows me to be more creative in the process that I'm in. So, starting off at 2:30 or 3 a.m. may sound crazy to some people, but honestly, I feel like it works for my lifestyle because it allows me to have time for work, have time for family, have time for friends, have time for hobbies. And every now and then I have downtime. I think, people who know me well think I'm somebody who's always go, 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 go. And I'm not going to lie, I am. But at the end of the day, I do try to carve out those 10, 15, 20 minutes of downtime when, you know, before I jump into a project, before I do something. I give myself that, all right, you got 5 minutes, you got 10 minutes to just scroll, boom, you're done. Or you got, 5, 10 minutes to just do nothing, relax, stretch, meditate, do something that isn't going to immediately impact your creative process. So, one of the main things that gets me going throughout the day is, of course, getting in my pre-workout and all that good stuff, gets the juices going, I ain't gonna lie. But the other thing is getting my body moving and getting my workout going, because I know that if I leave fitness to the middle of the day, to the end of the day, it's never going to happen. And like I said, if you're a parent, you have kids, you understand that once they're up, you're pretty much at the mercies of your kids, because, my youngest is 1.5, my oldest is about to be 4. And so it's like, they are rambunctious, they're wild, they're screaming, they're yelling, they're toddlers, they're kids, right? Especially they're boys. So I know that no matter what, my day's going to be interrupted. But if I can manage those interruptions, um, one, by my schedule, and two, by the way that I communicate to my wife and how my schedule is going, um, what blocks I need of time to be creative, to be managerial, to be father, to be husband, like, it allows me to maximize the time that I'm using within that process. So last week I had a video shoot with an apartment complex here in Austin that has condos as well. So I'm going to be editing some of the photos from that shoot right now. But then on my iPad, I cleared a bunch of the data from my Go 3S, so we can do the whole Vlogmas, because we're going to be traveling a lot in December. And so
having the Go 3S and the X4 are really good just to like have a travel camera with me at all times. And then I get to edit everything on the iPad. So I'm just right now getting everything situated, not just for, the next few days, but for the rest of the month. Because I feel like, especially when it comes to vlogging and trying to get things in order, it takes time. And I've always been behind. I did Vlogmas a few years ago, and it was a lot of fun. I love creating. I love that aspect of creating daily content, and so I really want to be better at this time around. So I know in order to do that, I got to be better organized when it comes to just my gear. I think part of creating is the fun aspect of it. Like, if you're not having fun creating things, then why are you doing it? And I think the more that I've kind of developed my style and just gotten more comfortable in front of the camera and everything, the more that I've wanted to create my own stuff but haven't really had the opportunity. So now that we're kind of wrapping up some jobs and getting things done, it's giving me the freedom to create, even though I probably should be doing other things. I really want to do Vlogmas this year, especially since the boys are getting bigger. Jordan's going to be turning 4 in a few weeks, and this is going to be Jack's like first official Christmas where he's like cognizant of what's going on. So I want to be good this year about capturing Vlogmas, and this is literally what I do every day. Like, again, to some people it may be crazy. To me, it's just everyday life as a creative parent and somebody who just wants to strive to be better every single day at what I do, not just in the creative aspect, but again, as a parent, as a friend, as an athlete, as everything, man. I mean, we only have one life to live, and so why dumb it down? Why not, try to go for the gold? And I think the more and more that I wake up every day, and the more and more that I see myself pursuing my dream and seeing so many things that I'm doing, it's like, man, I should be documenting this stuff. Like, the people I get to hang out with, the conversations I get to have, all this stuff. So I just feel like I'm not getting any younger. Time's only gonna keep going. So if I'm gonna be doing daily vlogs, like, one, why not start for Vlogmas? It's what we do as creators. But two, it's like, man, just capture the beauty that's around you. And nowadays in the social media realm, man, it doesn't matter if you spend months editing something, weeks editing something, or minutes editing something. Like, the algorithm, people, like, so many things are just up in the air, to where I have also felt like, why am I investing so much time in creating the content that I want for my page when it's not really getting the notoriety that I wanted to? When maybe I could just create things that are more like this, more personal, more about the everyday life, which will make posting easier. But at the same time, it lets me capture the memories that I want to capture. And so, yeah, this is all just experimenting, because at the end of the day, I always love using myself as a guinea pig and as a lab rat. All right, so it's about to be 8 o'clock, which means the kids should be waking up in a bit. So I'm gonna wrap up here shortly and then go have breakfast with the family. Also, these snacks have been killer. If you want like a good after workout snack that isn't a protein shake, I highly recommend these. I've already smashed 2 bags of the spicy ones that they have, because they're so delicious. And yeah, so if you want another way of intaking protein for yourself, highly recommend these. Well, we just got some big news. Sony officially dropped the A7 IV. Now, this is a camera that I've been waiting for a long time now, and I've been telling so many other people to wait for it as well, because I think everybody is used to upgrading their gear every 1 or 2 years, especially with iPhones and Samsungs and all that kind of stuff. So I feel like a lot of consumers have this itch to want to buy something new, and especially since Sony had dropped some new cameras earlier this year, a lot of people were thinking, well, they're not going to drop the A7 IV. But it's officially here, and this is what I'm going to tell y'all. Now, for me, as somebody who owns a Sony a7S III and the Sony a7C, which is still one of my favorite cameras, and previously owned a Sony a7 IV, if you're in any one of these camps, I'm going to give you some insight on whether or not you should buy this. Now, if you are a Sony a7 IV user or a Sony a7C user like myself, I think getting the Sony a7 V is a no-brainer. I always recommend updating your cameras every 5 years because you want your camera to have that longevity of life, but also you want it to last you long for your shoots, especially if you're investing a lot of money in it. And so if you have something like the Sony A7C or the Sony A7 IV, those are already outdated, and it's smart for you to upgrade if you have the money to do so. Don't go and buy this if you can't afford it. If you can't afford it, or if you can trade in your camera and then put a little extra to get it, I highly, highly recommend you do this. Primarily because one of the things that I think is great that's come out with this is the 33 megapixel stacked sensor, which is going to allow you to get better images as a photographer. Now, as a videographer, this shoots 4K 60, which is phenomenal, but 4K 20 is cropped. So for me, that's kind of one of the reasons why I don't want to get it, because my Sony a7S III does 4K 120 without the crop, so there isn't really anything in me that would want to get it other than the photo quality. Now, somebody who is a hybrid shooter, and I've been a hybrid shooter pretty much my entire photography and videography career, I'm looking at this as a replacement for my Sony a7C because it's something that's going to allow me to get way better images for my clients in the long run. One of the other cool things about this is the new articulating screen, which moves in so many different ways. Now, to me, it's not going to be a big make or break it kind of thing. I love the flip out screen that the Sony a7S III has, and even the Sony a7C has. So I'm not going to be sold on it, but it is really cool to have this new feature on it, and the screen is actually bigger and you get way more visibility in daylight. So if you're somebody who takes a lot of photos in the daytime, it may be a smart choice to upgrade to this one. Also, because it shoots 30 frames a second. So if you're doing weddings or sports or anything where there's going to be fast movement, then you need something like this to keep up with your photography. Now, like I said, if you're somebody who owns a Sony a7 IV or a Sony a7C or something around that and you want to upgrade, I think it's a no-brainer. You definitely should do it if you afford it. Now, as somebody who's a Sony a7S III shooter, or maybe if you're somebody who shoots on the Sony FX3, I would say don't do it. For me, I'm really waiting on the Sony a7S IV. Now, once that camera comes out, then I'm going to rearrange all the cameras I have and build my entire system around that. But as of right now, the Sony a7S III that I have does a phenomenal job for all my video work, and the Sony a7C does a great job for all my photography. So to me, there's no real big need to upgrade, but if you're somebody who is just wanting to get a new camera and you have that itch and you've been waiting for the newest Sony camera, this one is it. Now, the only thing I will say is that it is a bit pricey, clocking in at about $3,000. But if you're somebody who has a career in photography and videography and you've been a hybrid shooter and this is how you make money, then it's a no-brainer. You're going to make your money back by the job you get from this camera. And like I said, especially if you're used to shooting on a Sony a7 IV or a Sony a7C, you're pretty much getting the same camera, but with way, way better upgrades. It has the AI in it. Like I said, it has that burst shoot option in it, way bigger screen, better battery life. There's just so many reasons why you should upgrade if you have an older camera. But for the rest of us Sony a7S or FX3 users, we may want to pass on this one for now, because like I said, I honestly think after the Sony a7S IV comes out, I'll probably add this on as my second shooter, and then that'll be my setup for the next 5 years.